What was that? Well, that was a movie. Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Skinamarink, which is a horror art house film by first-time writer-director Kyle Edward Ball. It was made for only $15,000. It was filmed in his old childhood home, his mom's home, with very limited practical effects, a little bit of CGI, limited crew, and pretty much no cast. And the cast that was in it, I don't believe any of them are professional actors. I didn't recognize any of them from anything else. It is a art house film that has taken the world by storm, raced through a bunch of different festivals, had a lot of strong reactions to it that have led to it getting a lot of 100s on Metacritic and also some zeros on Metacritic, resulting in a 66% on Metacritic and a whopping 4.9 on IMDb. People seem to either love or hate this movie, with most people seeming to hate it and a lot of critics really liking it, but not all critics really liking it. This movie's been out a while. It came out back in January or February of this year, but I hadn't seen it yet. I was very curious about it, but skeptical of it, not only because of the reviews I'd seen of it, where it's got, like I said, a 4.9. A lot of people really hate this movie, but also because the style of this movie, what I'd heard about this movie, isn't typically my thing. Like I said, it's art house. I do really like artsy movies, but I have a limit to how artsy I'm willing to go. And from what I'd heard about this movie, it went beyond what I'm typically comfortable with. It sounded like one of those movies that often get made fun of, where they just set up the camera facing like a wall for 3 hours. Or if you've ever watched like Homestar Runner, like the Strong Sad movie where he's like filming his flower or whatever he was doing.
Strong Sad is on the independent film side. He's the lifer artist type who went to film school.
I minored in holding on wide shots for too long.
And he's making some boring, very personal, no-budget film.
That's what it sounded like. And so I was scared that this movie was just going to suck and I was just going to waste, an hour and a half of my time watching it. But it's around Halloween now, and I'm like, this movie's also considered to be really scary and really well made to some critics, so I should give it a shot and see how good or bad it really is. And after having seen it, I have to admit I'm impressed by it. I really hated parts of it, and I really loved parts of it, and regardless of how I feel about it, I know that I respected the hell out of it. So, yeah, what does that mean? It definitely is one of those movies where it is ungodly slow, like way slower than it needed to be. And if I had any major critique of this movie, is that a lot of it could have been cut out. This movie could have been a lot shorter. I've seen other people say this movie, instead of being 100 minutes, which it was, should have been 15-20 minutes long. I don't agree that it should have been that short, but I do think it could have been an hour or 50 minutes long, because so much of this movie is long pauses, just waiting for things to happen, and part of that is building up the intensity and building up anticipation. But when, like, the first half hour of this movie, nothing happens. If you don't know the plot of this movie, you haven't heard about it, don't know anything about it, the plot is these two kids wake up to find that their parents have vanished, and so have all of the doors and windows in their house. And I don't mean that there's just holes in the wall now. Now there's just wall there. They can't get out. They can't see out even of their house. And so they're just trapped there. And that immediately sounds like a pretty intense thing to happen. A pretty intense thing to wake up to. These kids are like 4 or 6 years old. But what we get is found footage style footage for about half an hour of them just walking around, whispering to each other, and doing nothing, ultimately. And when I say found footage, I don't mean like them walking around with a camcorder. It's like they have a camcorder that's on, that is sitting on the floor, or pointed at a wall, or pointed up at the ceiling, because that's how they chose to film it. And I get that that's an artistic choice, but it is very boring and hard to watch at times. Even the fact that it looks like it's camcorder footage, I know they didn't actually film it on a camcorder, but it's edited to look like that. Also, filming in such limited lighting will make any camera look bad, but they specifically edited it, I believe, to make it specifically look like a camcorder from the 90s, because that's when it's supposed to take place, 1995. So why did I like it then? If it's that boring, if it's that slow, if it's that weird, then why did I like it? And I'll admit, part of me doesn't know. I was texting my friend the whole movie, kind of giving a play-by-play reaction of it, and most of the texts were negative. I'm like, I can't believe nothing has happened. This is so slow. This is so weird. And then suddenly you just see a shift in the text where like, God damn it, I think I like this. And like I said, I don't entirely know how much I like it, but I definitely respect it. And I'm going to get into spoilers in just a minute. I know this movie's been out a while, but I don't want to spoil anything if you don't want it spoiled, because it's definitely worth watching and then coming and talking about it, because it really needs to be talked about. I was so frustrated that I watched it alone, because I'm like, I need to talk this through with somebody, because that's ultimately why I like it, is it made me think. It made me feel something. And yeah, it was weird, and yeah, it was really slow, and yeah, it was extremely low budget, and noticeably so, but yeah, this movie just, I think it is, not entirely, but at least partially brilliant. I think there's a lot of things about it that I don't like, and things that I would have done differently if I was making it, but it is also so brilliant in, one, its simplicity, and two, its absolute insanity and boldness, that I have to respect it. And there is a fine line between being artsy and being crappy. And I think a lot of that has to do with confidence, but they had so much confidence that I really respect it, and I really think that they were onto something. And even if not the whole movie worked for me, a lot of it did. So I'm going to get into spoilers now, because I can't really say anything about it without getting into spoilers, other than the vague idea that this was weird and quirky, but also pretty good, but also pretty bad. That's like all I can say, is like, you just have to see it to understand it. And even if you see it, you might not understand it. So I do recommend it, but I do caution you at the same time that most of you won't like it. Because even as somebody who really likes artsy movies, this was out there for me, and I didn't like half of it. I love the other half of it, though. So you may be split about it, or you may hate it, or you may love it. You may love the whole thing and disagree with me that there's anything wrong with it at all. I'm just going to give it a 6, because I liked it more than I didn't. And like I said, I really respected it a lot. I probably should see it again. I don't know that I want to, though, at least not right now. It definitely is a fun movie to think about and talk about, though. So that's what I'm hoping to do right now. Maybe the more that I talk about it, the more I'll enjoy it. Or maybe I'll understand it more after I've talked about it with you guys a little bit. So anyway, if you don't want anything spoiled, please go watch it first, come back, and then we can talk about it then. Thanks, guys. Bye. So, spoilers. I think this movie is about divorce, and I've Googled that, and there seemed to be a group of people that agree with me as well. It's very vague, but there's a lot of ideas going on. I think most of them are wrapped up in childhood trauma associated with divorce and abandonment, because right away, the plot being, you wake up as a child, and all of a sudden, things are upside down. Literally, the rooms are shifted upside down. They're walking on the ceiling. There's stuff on the ceiling instead, or on the floors up there, or whatever. And it's like, that's what it's like. You wake up one day and your world is turned upside down. And your parents are gone. There's no way out because the doors are gone. You can't even see a way out because the windows are gone. And it's like, that just, to me, screams divorce. Especially then, there's a couple scenes where the parents are back and they're talking to them. And the mom is like, I just want you to know that we do love you, and just remember that. And a lot of the dialogue there just was very reminiscent of those divorce situations and how parents react in that situation. I will say, not all of it definitely is that. Like, there's this whole thing where there's like this creepy voice that's going on, talking to especially the boy, who I think is kind of the main character. There's no real main character, but the girl kind of disappears at a certain point and he's left alone, and the voice is telling him things like, there's a knife, stab yourself with it. And it's like, well, that's not specifically divorce, but that could be depression or some sort of manic episode that's brought on by the trauma or the situation of going through a broken home at such a young age. So I think that that's what it's about. It's about growing up in that situation. I mean, there's other things too that I'm not entirely sure of the meaning, but it does make sense to me, at least, that that's what it could be referring to. Like, other things other than the windows and doors disappear seemingly at random too. Like, at one point, the toilet disappears, and so they have to resort to using buckets. To me, it's like that symbolizes like what it's like, once again, to lose your parent. One, it's something you just always thought, always believed would be there, and all of a sudden now it's gone. And it's like, how do you even react to that? And two, it's not just like some random thing. It is an essential thing. Your toilet is essential. So is your parent. It's something that you need, and all of a sudden it's gone. How do you react to that? How do you survive in that situation? So I think that's what it's representing, is like, your world is flipped upside down. There's no time passing when you can't see light. What's the difference between night and day? It's like every day's the same. Everything, you're just stuck inside in this world where nothing changes, and you're just stuck here with the TV, by the way, getting stuck and looping the same part of a cartoon over and over again, specifically the part where the rabbit makes himself disappear. And it's like, that is so brilliant, and I love the symbolism in that moment. That's where I'm like, this movie is brilliant. I will say, though, that at the same time, I still think that this movie could have been shorter, and we didn't need quite as many shots of the wall, quite as many shots of just darkness, and I think we could have made a really cool allegory out of this story, rather than, I mean, it is an allegory, it is, but like, we could have shown more, we could have done more with it in my mind, but maybe, you know, like, that doesn't mean that they should have. And maybe if they did make something bigger and more with it, and I'm speaking with a budget, because they had no budget. Like I said, $15,000. They were very limited in what they could do, you know. But even if they had a bigger budget and decided to make a bigger, grander story out of it, something like the Babadook or Antlers, maybe it wouldn't have been any better, actually, and maybe they should have just stuck with this. So just because I go there with my mind, and that's what I would have wanted and would have written if you asked me to do a story like this, that doesn't mean it's better. So that's why I'm stuck where, like, it's not at all how I would have done it. At all. And if you asked me, is it a good idea? I'd probably say no. But having seen it, I can't say it was bad. I can't say it was the wrong choice, because it worked. And yeah, there's parts of it I don't like, and parts of it I would have done differently, but they're the one that came up with the idea. They're the ones that executed it, and it worked. It was their vision, and it worked. I can't claim that I understand all of it. Like I said, maybe I should see it again, and it will get better with subsequent viewings. Or maybe not. Maybe it is just flawed art, but what it is still good regardless of if it has these flaws or not in it. Like I said, I really respect it. I don't know how much I'm going to want to watch it again. I can't say that I really enjoyed the viewing experience, but it is, maybe it's just one of those movies that is more enjoyable to think about after the fact and talk about after the fact than actually watching it. There's a lot of movies like that, and I enjoy a lot of those movies. I found Nope to be one of those movies. Beau is Afraid to be one of those movies. Even Asteroid City, as much as I enjoy the viewing experience of that, I think I enjoy talking about the movie more than actually watching it. So this movie could just be one of those, and that's fine, because that is an option in art. And I spent my entire life up until seeing this movie writing off this whole genre of the really artsy, fartsy art house films where, like I said, they just point a camera at a wall, and I said all of those are a joke, none of those are good, they're all terrible, and I've been proven wrong. And it's just like, that's life-changing to me, you know? Like, I'm not saying now, oh, I want to make one of these, because I don't think I could. I don't think it's my thing. I don't think that's what I'd be good at. And maybe eventually I'll want to try something like that, but like, it's just amazing. I never expected to watch this movie, this kind of movie, and come out of it saying, that's good, that is art. And I now, like I said, it's just blown my mind, because I didn't think it was possible to make this kind of movie and actually be good and actually have me take it seriously. So yeah, like I said, I respect the hell out of it. And it is a very weird concept, or not concept, because I think it's a brilliant concept. I think the execution is what's weird about it. But the execution works. It does. As much as I hate it, I also love it at the same time. So, I don't know. There's definitely other things you can critique about it too, but it's like you give it some grace because of how cheap it was. Like, yeah, the acting is pretty terrible. The sound is awful, you know, like you can't hear what's happening. They had to add subtitles, but still, they don't add subtitles to all of the movie, just the really hard to understand lines. So I had to turn on the regular subtitles anyway because I couldn't understand half of what was happening anyway. And like there would be things that would be like the subtitles would say this is happening. I'm like, are you sure? I can't hear that, but I'll believe you. And it'd be like this character is talking. I'm like, they are? I can't hear literally anything right now. So yeah, there's definite legitimate criticisms of it, but you give it some grace, you give it some leeway because of how cheap it is. You know, it's not going to have good special effects. The special effects are kind of crappy. Like I said, the acting, a lot of it isn't good, but what is good is the concept and the originality of it. I've never seen anything like this before. And I know it's not entirely the first of its kind, but it is still wholly unique in its own way. It is its own unique thing, and I love it for that. So, yeah, not saying, oh, this is on my top 10 movies list or whatever, or best movie of the year. I loved it, but I respect it, and I still, like I said, at the end of the day, I did enjoy it, and I'm enjoying even more thinking about it after the fact. So I do recommend it. I just have to warn you at the same time. Like there was points in watching this movie that I was like, am I being pranked right now? That's what the beginning of this movie felt like. I thought I was being pranked. But then after, I don't know, 30, 35 minutes, when things start happening, I was so invested. And so when it got slow again, I may have been a little bit irritated at how slow it was, but I was not looking away from that screen. I was locked in. I was like, okay, I trust you. What was his name? Kyle Edward Ball. I trust you because you've taken me this far and I want to see where you're going to take me from here. And so I now, like, I'm hoping that he got through festivals and stuff with this. His movie's on Hulu now or whatever. He's going to have opportunities in the future to make more movies with a bigger budget. And I'm going to be curious because sometimes I feel like filmmakers luck their way into making a movie. Like I said, there's a fine line between artsy and crappy, and sometimes you accidentally end up on the good side just without knowing what you're doing. I think there's a lot of movies like that where first time directors make a good movie by accident and they never make anything good again. So I'm going to be very curious if that's going to be him or if he actually knew what he was doing and will make good movies in the future as well. So I'm definitely going to watch whatever he does next because, like I said, he won me over. He really, man, I respect him for what he was able to accomplish. With the budget in mind, too, it was even better. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a mind-boggling movie. It makes you just, it makes my head hurt a little bit even thinking about it. And, I don't know. What do you guys think about it? If you've seen it, let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, share. If you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye. Weird movie. I think I liked it, though. I think I did.